experience, we started one academy. We call it Somin Academy. Somin is one of the traditional institution of the tribal community where young people used to learn various life skills from the old people, like hunting, uh, and then cultivation, and then coating agar, and then the village administration. These are some of the skills which are being transferred by the old people to the younger generation. So in the Somin, the young people, they used to spend the whole night, stay there, and then they learn those various life skills. So taking that philosophy and the concept, we are saying we will provide this kind of life skill in our schools, not necessarily providing hunting skill or whatever. So we said, since hunting is no longer relevant with this context, uh, one of the life skill could be like team building, and then uh, communication skills, and then interpersonal relationship. These are some of the life skills which we also would like to stress. And unfortunately, when we started the academy, we opened the academy in February, and then in March, national lockdown due to COVID was happening, for which the just opening schools cannot continue further. Uh, One of my apprehension after attending the webinar on NEP, where Surjit gave us lots of light on the content of NEP, my biggest apprehension is, I don't know, because area will come under one. I don't know if I heard it wrong. You correct me. Uh, the government school, the private school, whichever, will come under one principles, and the government, if there's whatever infrastructure they have, that can be accessed, or whatever the private school infrastructure they have, the government school can access. I don't know how feasible that is, and then in what way uh, that will be applicable in the ground. Theoretically, it may be possible, but practically, I don't know how, because uh, the hard fact is that the private school and the government school, I don't know. I don't think they will come. They will come together. That is one of the biggest apprehension. And the second one is, are we still just we started the Somin Academy, and could we continue this just newly started schools, or are we going to be uh, invalid, looking into the kind of laws and rules uh, put up in the national education policy? So my concern is, uh, should we continue running this academy, or should we stop? That I'm still clueless, and I hope Sujit also can help me out. I think that's the experiences so far which I had, and then the some of the concern. Maybe if something comes in between, I will also come in and share. Thank you.
Yes, it's very very thought-provoking and and a very good reflection on NEP. Yes, what Hejang said about resource sharing between government schools and the private school is what NEP 2020, that the resources of the government schools and the private school will uh, within the school complex will be accessible by both. In the meantime, even the best practices of the private schools will be institutionalized in the government schools. I will not go more in details. Then first one round for all of us. Then after that we can have open discussion, kind of the free flow of ideas from from each other. To request Jlina Kurkalang to speak on her experience and her on NEP 2020. One or two lines about Jlina. She was a dropout, and today she is an activist with very strong grounding in academic and community. In the meantime, she's an organic leader. She has completed master's sociology around 5 years back. So her journey from rural village dropout girls to a kind of full-fledged, full-time social activist, educational activist is something inspirational for all of us. Now let us listen to her. Over to Jlina.
Thank you, Surjit, for introducing me. That is the realities of my life. First of all, I thanks to MK. He is the host, and to Master Surjit. He is a moderator, and to all our speaker, I would like to thanks to all of you. Thank you. I got this opportunity to share my experience on the topic mentioned, experience sharing from the grassroots and their apprehension on NEP 2020. Friends, now I will share my experience on dropout children in one of the block in East Khasi Hill district of Meghalaya. The name of the block is Maukenrau block. In this block, there are 68 villages. There are around 150 lower primary school, around 17 upper primary school created in the last few years, and around 8 secondary schools. These also were created in the last few years only. As per my engagement in the work for how to bring the dropout back to school, there are problems and
Hello, Jlina. Yeah, we miss your voice. Can you speak again few lines starting from the
yes,
problems and the issues? We lost your voice, so can you repeat it from the problems and the issues you highlighted?
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. There are problems and first, just second, lack of children to attend school. Third, poor attendance, both children and teachers. Fourth, infrastructure and maintenance is very poor. The recent data of dropout rate from the state is not available, but as per our estimate, there are around 80% above. Now I will give one example, one of the village that is like say village. In Lakse village, there are 140 houses. There are 2 lower primary schools. That is one full-fledged government LP school, Lakse, and second one is Press LP school, Lakse, run by the Presbyterian Church. We did last year survey for dropout between the age of 12 to 18 years. We found that there are more than 35 dropout. Even below 12 years or so, there are large number of dropout. Now, why children drop out or push out or walk out from school? Because children don't have time. Up to 11 to 12 years old, till children are not adequately strong to engage in work, they are abandoned in school. But not all, as I mentioned earlier. But once they are grown up, then parents send them to take care cow or goat, or working in somebody's house, or going to the field, or taking care their sibling extra. Why they are going for work? There can be several reasons. I can list here only 2 points. 1, poverty. 2, ignorance. 3, there is no hope for future. 4, too many children extra. When I look back to the NEP 2020, in NEP 2020, children can join in NIOS or vocational or online class. Means a dropout is not needed to go to school now. Then what will happen? It is a big question to give the answer. In the years to come, number of dropout will be increased. Early marriage will increase. There will be no more village leader who knows how to read and write in the years to come. Corruption will increase. The educated person will exploit the uneducated person. Out of 175 schools, 1/3 are running by the private bodies here in Maukendo block. With the growing of private school in Maukendo block and in Meghalaya as a whole, government schools are dying very soon. In NEP 2020, the school now will combine into school complex. Small school will be closed down. The small school, both private and government school, will be closed down. Less the number of schools means more the number of dropout. Therefore, with school complex, dropout will be more. This is my last point. What will happen to school when government stop giving money? I am sure government school, deposit grant in its school, ad hoc grant in its school, recognized school, permitted school will stop functioning. But once they are grown up, then and those private schools for rich people will continue with high fees. Therefore, there will be quality education for the rich and no education for the poor. Let us join hands to fight for the right of dropout, poor children and ignorant parents to stand on their own feet and fight for their right. We believe dropout children is the future for our society and our nation as a whole. Thank you. That is my little sharing from my experience and when I look back to the NEP 2020. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jlina. It's a wonderful presentation. It's a very good point for all of us. It's an eye-opening sharing by you. We'll have more time to interact. Now, I would like to request Pauzagin Tonsing to speak about his experience and his concern. One or two words about Pauzagin Tonsing. Personally, whenever I meet him, it's something like we are going to create history. The word he used, the way he made me feel so good and so happy. Sometimes I feel that I can see myself in him, and his experience is so much that I would be able to express in word. Let us listen to him first. Okay, over to Pauzagin.
Thank you, Surjit, the host, and then the MKLL for, MKLL, the host and moderator, Surjit sir. Yes, Surjit sir said, I love to hear Surjit sir's discourse because he has full of knowledge on, especially on education sector. Talking to disability, NEP, we talk NEP, and I'm in a disability sector, and I'll be talking on disability related to NEP. And when we talk on disability, we should treat disability as an identity, but not as a deficit in a person. Person with disability should be recognized as one of a community, but not as a people who are deficit for the community or lacking something for the community. So they are part of the people, and when we address them also, like MK before he addressed the people with disability, and normally we don't, people don't accept that people with disability. It should be person with disability, person with, and then the disability should be added there. Say if he's belonging to, he's with visual impairment, person with visual impairment, person with intellectual disability. We no longer call it mental retard, we call it intellectual disability. So the term itself is very important when we talk about disability. And my discourse will be a very short, but what I had experienced and with NEP related, to be related. We have Person with Disability Act in 1995, which came into effective in 1996. and there it recognizes about integrated kind of education. When we call an integrated kind of education means we have a regular school or we have a mainstream school, and where we put in we dumped in person with disability in that school. Then the person who the child, the student who is with disability has to adapt according to the school rules. If it is not accessible, he has to try to make it accessible by himself. That is accessibility. Then we have RPD, right, for person with disability Act 2011. There it recognizes about inclusive education and it focuses on inclusive education. When we call inclusive education means a school or any institution where person with disability can join. In this case, both the party, the school or the institution has to adapt to be accessible for the person who is with disability, as well as the person who is with disability has to also to adapt. It's a both way. And in this NEP, we have this home-based schooling also, but I don't see much differences because the problem of this integrated, inclusive, and home-based is always the same. All over India, we have a very less number of professionals who can train or who can teach person with disability. The number is very less. Say right now in Manipur, I'm in Manipur and based in Tur example, we have 4 or 5 resource educator in each block, and one block cover more than 10 or 15 schools. And these schools are one school to another school is very far off. So once one resource teacher cannot taken care of these blocks. So the challenges we face with this is the professional, the trained teachers who can taken care of the person who is with disability. And when and in the meantime, we have another issue. We have NCTE, National Council for Teachers Education, and it is for a general B.Ed. And special education B.Ed courses is looked after by RCI, Rehabilitation Council of India. So both the teachers are having B.Ed, but one is with special education and another one with general. And the council is different. These two should be clubbed together. Like uh, I did join B.Ed special education, but I couldn't complete anyway. But that was taken care by RCI. And one of my friend who is my classmate also, he also did his B.Ed, but he is under NCTE. The coverage of the course may be same, but why we do have different council for the same qualification. Now, the NPE also focus, and even the social justice and empowerment told us that, I mean, in the news it comes out that knowledge of how to teach children with disability will be integral part for teachers education. If we want to club this, then it should come under one council only, not two council. It should come under one council. It should come under one council. Then the certification may be, I mean, Manipur University or Nehu or any university can be, but that curriculum, the syllabus should be under one council. University might be different. And in the meantime, we have DIET. Then in the meantime, we have DSE. DIET is for general, and DS is Diploma in Special Education is under RCI again. And those who completed DSE, Diploma in Special Education, after completing class 12, they have to go for another 2 years course for DSE. But after completing the course of DSE, they can join undergraduate post, not graduate post. So these things should be considered. It should be taken care of. It if not, will the deficiency? I mean the scarcity of professional will be like on and on. Then coming to the first one, that neighborhood the school, regarding school, regular school, we have regular school or neighborhood school. Then we have special school, and then home based education. So these special schools right now, till that, the special schools come under Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Anyone who can compile document can apply to the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment under Then Dayal Disability Rehabilitation Scheme, and they can apply it and they can run a school. But that school for person with disability, a specialized school, that person with disability is not recognized by Education Department or Ministry of HRD. Still, they can run up to class 10, or even up to 12 also they can run. But that is not under Education Department, but that is under Social Justice and Empowerment. Then that regular school is under Ministry of HRD or Department of Education in its state. So these two schools, these two type of school, though mentioned in the NEP, should come under one body where the board those two schools can be recognized under one regulation. They should share one regulation. Now, if I'm not mistaken, most of the school run under Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment for person with disability are they follow any curriculum whatever they want. There is no standardization of the assessment. Though there are many type of assessment they follow, but it's not at par with other regular school. That has to be considered. And when come to the standardization of assessment, if we could have one regulated council or authority where special schools and regular schools can be recognized, then we can have a common assessment. And when it comes to a common assessment, then the grading, the standard of the child will be at par with everyone. But need to be considered a child with disability. He might be with benchmark disability, or might be severe, or maybe mild, or might be with medium. This can be taken care of by introducing this individualized education or a kind of adaptive curriculum. Adaptive curriculum is necessary for a person with disability. If he's hearing impaired, it's okay. He has a very good cognitive. But in case if a child is with intellectual disability, we have a great he has a great difficulty in adapting with other regular students again. So a kind of assessment we need to do. And we under this in NEP it recognizes about this class 3 standard, class 5 standard, and class 8 standard, and class 9 standard. This standard that NIOS also they have the NIOS also they already have that standard. And below class 10 they call it OBE, Open Basic Education. Any student studying, below there is the ACE bar, and when he attends the ACE bar, he has to write that exam according to the standard 3, standard 5, standard 8. So this should be this also we can introduce with the regular school as well as it specialized school, and that also to be regulate with the same authority, not different authority or different ministry. And one ministry we can do that. And we face a lot of problem with children with disability, because if a child is having autistic, if a child is autism, his needs might be different with his other friend who is autistic, because two different autistic kids, their need is different. So this too should be this can be taken care when we frame the IEP, individualized education program. Yeah, hello.
No,
Hello.
nothing.
Okay, okay. So and then with the NEP, they are talking about this skill development again. And in the skill development, though my friend Hejang is, I don't know whether he approved or not. I didn't get it, but I accept it. Our Indian education system is too much focused on reading and writing, but we totally lack the ability of the child. Reading and writing is one thing, but there is another set in the child, his ability or her ability, that is a skill of his own self that has to be recognized. Even with the regular student who don't have a disability, we need to identify that. And a child when he cross I mean 16 biological age of 16, we need to introduce his life skill vocational thing, but that has, if we can identify it earlier, then that life skill which the NEP is focusing is also very important in this NEP. That is, I think that is the best part in the NEP. I don't know other part, but we need to do this. We need to focus, recognize that skill development also, as a skill thing also, skill development part also in the NEP. So overall, is it too long? When we talk on disability and schooling, and then giving appropriate services to the child, we should focus on his ability, not necessarily to the academic, I mean the biological age of his. Because some say my son who when he was in the age of 5, he can take, I mean he can go to loo by himself when he was 4, but others they can go by 3. So some children ability is delayed, and that also we have to recognize. So the overall of for my conclusion, when we provide education to a child, we have to recognize his ability and standardize his ability according to what the standard which we already have it. Let us not focus on the even biological age. We need to focus on their psychological age. Thank you. Is it too long?
No, it's okay. Absolutely fine, and it's wonderful. We will have ample time. So thank you so much, Pauzagin. It's wonderful. There are so many technical issues also,
Exactly. Yeah.
and it's wonderful. Just to add 1 or 2 lines in connection with the NEP 2020. The NEP 2020 highlight 3 provisions. One is homeschooling for severely disabled children. And there is no clarity about how will we bring inclusive education in the mainstream education, but it is so certain that whoever who cannot join mainstream education for whatever reason, children will be given option for multiple pathways. And in the NEP, education is divided into 2 broad categories. One is mainstream, other one is multiple pathways. So for whatever reason, if a child cannot participate in mainstream education, then 3-4 options are given. One, NIOS or SIOS if it is created. Second, online education, accredited online education. Third, homeschooling. Fourth, vocational education. In addition to this, provision for teachers training. The diet can organize 3 months training program for teaching disabled children. That is the only provision available. Now about the full-fledged B.Ed courses under NCTE and RCI and the diploma in disability education, most likely it will be as per provision in the NEP higher education provision. That means there will be no stand-alone training centers. Number one. Number two, there will be 4 years degree B.Ed courses with specialization in disability if one choose this specialization. But there is a tricky portions of the B.Ed courses. Students can join B.Ed courses laterally in the first year, in the second year, in the third year, and in the fourth year also. So these, in the name of the flexibility for becoming a degree holder of the B.Ed course, with the provision of lateral entry from any other courses, will it permit the teacher to have specialized knowledge in a particular field? This is something we need to debate on it. But one thing is this, standalone teachers of education will be abolished. More can be added by others. I would like to invite everyone to raise questions, to share your thoughts, ideas, and provoke all of us. The floor is open for all the participants to react, interact, and share your experiences, thought, even if it doesn't cover what is shared by our 3 speakers, one can share it or can raise question to the 3 speakers. The floor is open for all.
Coming back to this homeschooling, I missed out.
Yeah.
Right now we have 2 types. One is a center-based, another is a home-based. A home-based education where we provide the student who is very severe on his disability or her disability, we provide. But the challenge will be there as there are not enough professionals to take care of the child at home, and who will provide that services, the parents or any institution who is taking care of the child as one of their client or the student. And even in a center base, no one is having enough trained professional teachers. Then who will provide a service to the home? I mean, at home. And in our case in Jurchanpur, where we are working in Lamka, 80 to 90% are economically weaker section of the family that we are serving, and they are not even in a position to give even a tuition fee. Though we don't charge tuition fee, they are not in a position to give, say, 100 rupees per month. Now come, then if the child need a home service at home, a service at home, who will provide this service as a free of cost, or this government will give service to that family by sending one of their school teacher or one of their special educators? It's a big question again. It's a big challenge.
Yeah. Another is very much related, but for all of us, we have to keep in our mind that any institutions stand alone today, be it an institution run by an NGO or run by government or run by semi-government organization or run by a corporate. That standalone institution will now be integrated to a school. what is going to happen if a school meant to serve the interests of the disabled children be instituted under a school complex without having any, in terms of teachers training, in terms of resource provisioning, in terms of infrastructure, and the disempowerment of the State Department of Education to intervene into the structure is something that we all need to ponder what is going to happen if NEP 20 really implement as it is envisaged in NEP 2020. It's, in fact, my own reading says that NEP 2020 is also a document of exclusion. It is not about inclusion. If we look at the word inclusion starting from the mid-90s, inclusion is replacement of the equity. Whenever we talk inclusion, it is something like there is a proverb, something is better than nothing, something be available for the time being. So disability education is all the time heavily marginalized, heavily biased, full of prejudice, is all the time we are doing a favor. Rather, we never think this one as a norm. In fact, the whole concept of education for disability as showing some charity is something that we really need to challenge it. So this notion providing some charity to some people at the cost of the nation's development is something that is strongly reflected in even in the NEP 2020. NEP 2020, three things comes up. One, the constitutional values. Second, the development paradigm under SDG 4. Third, the Vedic values of India. Now, in terms of the Vedic values of India, they are not human. We all know that. And in the present time, the Vedic Dronacharya of Mahabharata, will he be tried out of law, and will he be penalized in today's time, or will we glorify Dronacharya for cutting the thumb of the Eklavya? This is a question to be debated, reflecting on NEP 2020. So therefore, disability is one issue. But if we look to the spectrum of the ability, then historically disabled people, we in the Northeast, we are all historically disabled people. Now, out of this, women is perhaps in somewhat little bit far in the spectrum, but in the farthest in the spectrum of marginalization is the disabled children. Now, the disabled children of the poor people is further marginalized. Now, there is no provision of financial support except on merit base. So, when we talk about the merit, shall we look disability as a merit, or shall we look disability as a barrier to be crossed for including ourselves into the merit list? These are something which need a lot of bigger debate. I would not talk so much because if I keep talking it, others will not come in. I invite everyone, please join, raise your questions, express your thoughts on NEP 2020 in the context of what is presented by our three speakers now. Yeah, kindly come in. Any one of our speaker also can raise questions, please.
Surjit sir.
Yes, yes.
So since we have heard from Pauzagin and Hejang that I think since both are working in different area, Ugin is working with the disability. I mean, whatever he call it, person with different kinds of disability. So suppose if tomorrow, if the government, say in this case, the government of Manipur or in the case of Jlina, the government of Meghalaya come up with a circular saying that the NEP will be effective from the session beginning 2021. So what will be the likely modality for them in terms of the implementations, operational viability of NEP for the for NGOs, for the grassroots NGOs or schools who are working with catering the persons with disability, as well as some of the very small schools which are operational in like Kangpokpi and in many other places, including the Hasi Hill, where Jlina has shared her experiences. So I mean I think that's the broader question that we can also raise, and I don't know how would it actually operate at the kind of village level, or where that the school complex is quite impossible, right? So I think that's something we also would like to hear from you, if you have any answers.
Shall I give the answer right now?
Up to even the speaker.
If any one of us can come in to answer it, please do it. I too have my own answer of the questions raised by MK. Hejang?
I think Surjit.
Okay.
I think it's better you can keep the answer.
Yeah,
that is better.
Let me try. I would like just to request all of us, when time permit us, to refer to section 3, chapter 3, section 4, and chapter 3, section 5 of the NEP 2020. And if we look into the chapter 1, and if we look to the chapter 5 and all the following chapters of school education up to page 32, there will be indication that education is divided into 2 streams. And these are used in different contexts with different terms. Let me highlight 3 important terms used in NEP 2020 for accessing to education. The first is mainstream education and multiple pathways. The third term is education for. These 3 terms is in chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. But the education fall, I believe it is repeated only twice. The multiple pathways at least twice time. So mainstream education comes around 4 or 5 times. So children can get education either in mainstream education or multiple pathways. Both children who are in multiple pathways or mainstream education will be treated as school-going children, and they will be enlisted in GER, gross enrollment ratio. That means if a child is not going to school, but still a part of the multiple pathways, then the child is treated as a full-fledged student. In multiple pathways, there are 4 ways are coming. First is open schooling. Second is online. Third is vocational education. The fourth is homeschooling for severely disabled children. Now, online education and the NIOS open schooling can be treated as homeschooling because they don't need to go to any school. Of course, NEP 2020 with a lot of sympathy says that these children will be invited to visit school complex occasionally. Now, Children in the mainstream will be attending full-fledged school exactly the way we are seeing students today. They will be attending classes, they will be attending assembly sessions of the school, they will be having holidays, they will be having exam, they will be exactly the way we call it a full-fledged school today. But for whatever reason, be it disability or be it poverty or be it accidents or be it parents choice, whatever reason, if the child is not in a position to go to these full-fledged schools, there will be no psychological pressure. There will be no constitutional mandate to give them one important word, to give them quality education. What is promised by the government is enrollment through online, NIOS, vocational education, or homeschooling. I will come back to this vocational education again because the vocational education and child labor's Act of 1996, no, 1986, which was amended in 2016 with rules and regulation came out in 2017. If we read it in conjunction, then a child laborer can be a full-fledged regular student of multiple pathways. So therefore, he or she will be enlisted into GER, gross enrollment ratio. Now, under this disability also will be definitely come. So therefore, having given an option for online or open schooling or homeschooling, the quality education for disability is out of question now. Now, the question of quality, please refer it to the section 3, chapter 3, section 4 of the, the, the NEP 2020. The language used in the NEP 2020, let me read out this line. Once infrastructure and the participation are in place, ensuring quality will be the key in retention of the students. Now, that means for those children whose infrastructure and whose participation as a regular students are not required. For online, there will be no attendance. For open schooling, there will be no attendance record. So for these children, quality will be still pending forever. It will never be fulfilled. So therefore, it is very clear in the NEP 2020, you can raise the quality question only for those children who are going to the regular student. But for those children who are coming under multiple pathways, in order to put themselves under educational fall, the quality question is invalid as far as NEP 2020 is concerned. Now, I would like just to take little forward. Having understood that enrollment is assured, having understood that quality promise is not offered to us, but again in the secondary level, as well as in the upper primary level, and in the higher education level, there will be a policy called open exit and entry policy. On the top of that, there will be very frequent 6 monthly exam taken by the NTA all over India. So therefore, admission will be based not on reservation, but it will be on merit. That means a child will have the opportunity to go to secondary level or higher education on the basis of his or her ability to perform well. Now, repeatedly, NEP 2020 says that what is important is not the input, but it is the outcome. So the government's interest is not to find out how and why children are not performing, because that is based on input, but they will decide it whom to incentivize on the basis of the performance. So therefore, a disabled child's performance and an able child's performance will be based on the same merit. Will they consider it some kind of the concessions? Now, under NEP 2020, repeatedly mentioning merit-based criteria. Admission will be on the basis of merit. and the replacement of the whole notion of the equitable access to education by having positive discrimination in the form of reservation has been completely removed. So the narrative of the people of India is now replaced historically by a term called SEDG, socially and economically disadvantaged group. Under these circumstances, those of us who cannot get access to the mainstream education for whatever reason, be it economic reason or be it social reason or be it whatever, in the caste-ridden rest of India, it can be definitely by the caste discrimination. In Northeast, it can be definitely by mostly by the economic deprivation. Now, in a situation like this, the option open is not in terms of steps for social justice, but it will be merit-based. So, this is a document of exclusion. Now, coming back to what MK shared about what will happen with, and like others also said about school education and all that, I would like just to put this in a different perspective. But let me make this statement clear that NEP 2020 as such, it is a document of exclusion. Education will be provided. It will be having two sets. One is for about 15% of the population, it will be quality education. For the rest of it, it will be education just for namesake. It will not be at all a quality education. I stop here for the time being. Please raise question, then I can put more. Otherwise, I will go out of the questions raised by MK. Hello, MK. And do I give answer to the question?
Surjit,
Yes,
Surjit sir,
yes, I'm listening.
coming specific to my concern,
Yes,
as I was mentioning, we started school.
yes.
What with this NEP 2020,
Ah,
uh,
okay,
are we,
yeah,
yeah, are we to continue or are we to stop?
all right. Let me come to this. In the conceptual level, up to NPE 1986 as amended in 1992, the smallest working unit of education in the school level is school. It can be lower primary school or it can be combined up to elementary level. It can be secondary school, higher secondary school. Now, school will not be a unit. It can be a subunit. So nobody can start a school. But the school can be started as a part of a school complex. So therefore, as government start implementing it, the school you started will be a school under a school complex. What is going to happen is the school as an independent entity, as an autonomous body, will be compromised now. The school, just for example, let me just mention the name Swarm Academy, will not be an autonomous independent body. You will be subjected to the rules and regulations as per wish of the head of the school complex, number one. Number two, your subunit of the school complex recognition will not be decided in the state level. It will be decided by a body in the national level through a unit called, through a state structure called SSSA, State School Standardization Authority. So therefore, the process which has been following by us up to now will not be followed. Now, the question comes about, will your school be able to survive or not?
Surjit sir,
As a school,
Surjit sir, I'll
Yeah.
be stopped because I'll be miss it again.
Yeah.
When we talk about complex,
yes,
it's like a physical complex or a virtual complex.
it is the school complex which is mentioned in the NEP 2020 is completely different from the school complex as it was mentioned in Kothari Commission's mentioned in the NPE 1968.
Like I mean, if we say a complex, we call it
Yes.
a complex. Which will be all the school should be within one compound, wall by within that wall. Is
That-
it that, or is
yeah,
it say Hejang is doing this his SOM education?
Yeah.
Like SOM education can be like, it can come under this home-based education also.
yes,
Okay, this home base of Hejang can
Yeah.
be in one of the complex in that cycle area, or like say if he's following his own way of educating the child, but at par with like uh, class 3 standard, class 5 standard, class 8 standard, teaching
Yes.
that standardized,
uh,
but he might not be within that four wall of the compound. Virtually, he can be outside of that physical compound. So, can this Hejang complex, I mean Hejang institution of SOM,
mhm.
can be within that complex?
There are two possibilities. One possibility is, before I say these possibilities, two possibilities, let me highlight the conceptual construct of school complex in NEP 2020. The NEP 2020 says that schools available within 5 to 10 kilometers will come together within a school campus.
Okay, campus. Okay.
Campus. That is the desire. And they said that standalone single school will be abolished. Within the school complex, the resources, human resources like teachers are to be shared. The physical infrastructure are to be shared. And the practices in the government, private institution is to be institutionalized in the government school and vice versa. In the sense that the sharing of the physical asset and the sharing of the teacher is conveniently possible only when it is in one campus. So this is the construct. But for example, this can be given some kind of the concession when it comes to the level of operational implementation. So it can be given such a situation that an institution locating within 5 to 10 kilometers can be officially, administratively, and in terms of the evaluation, teachers training program, it will be integrated to the school campus. But in terms of the physical infrastructure, it may be located a little bit away from the main headquarters of the school complex. That possibility may perhaps exist, but this will be a deviation from what is mentioned in NEP 22. Number one.
On a sarcastic way, 5 to 6 kilometer square, if any institution which is lying within that area, if any institution lying within that area, I think that can be within the complex.
No. In the
in a sarcastic
level,
way.
In the sarcastic way, yes. In the intention of the NEP 2020 clearly says that this is to be relocated.
Okay.
Let us give an outline. Relocated means it will be physically uprooted from that place. So therefore, the idea is to bring within a one common campus. But I personally
what I mean is that the NEP don't mention about the size of the complex. Okay. It can be 5 kilometer square also. It can be 1 kilometer square also.
Yes.
So like this is just for argument's sake. Okay, I'm talking about argument's sake.
Absolutely
and
right.
I'm just still thinking of Hejang. I saw what he did in that area. I visited that area. He has one SOM in one village, another SOM in one village, but those SOMs are within that 5 kilometer square.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, the complex, what they mentioned, is not defined. it should be 1 kilometer square or 10 hectare square within that. They didn't mention it. For argument's sake, I'm talking about argument's sake only.
Three things are mentioned. Number one. Number two, one campus within 5 to 10 kilometers. Number two, input will not be emphasized, but output will be emphasized.
Yeah.
That means there can be schools without campus at all. Number three, which is very important, the schools access to these school campus is based on affordability. So those who cannot afford don't have the right to get access to this. Now, at least in two places, it is mentioned that students of the vocational education, online and open, as well as homeschooling, will be invited occasionally to the school campus. That means it is inbuilt already that their presence every day is not necessary.
Not necessary, yeah, that's why.
So the home academy most likely may have an option of enrolling their children in under NIOS or SIOS or online or homeschooling or vocational education.
Surjit, regarding that, if my proposed school is beyond 5 to 10 kilometers square, then can I become a standalone school?
No, you can't do standalone. You can't do standalone.
Standalone is completely out of the consideration.
See, I mean, under this NPE, before NEP, there was also a rule saying that there cannot be school within a specific kilometers, whereas in reality, what people practices is, I mean, there are rules, but people don't follow within that.
Yeah, let me come
distance.
to that.
Within that distance, lots of schools are coming up, and the government, there isn't any kind of action from the part of the government.
No, it's like this.
When they said this in terms of distance, when they talk about in terms of distance, people talk in terms of distance in the mainland India, but they don't talk in terms of the distance of in the northeast region. So we have to adjust ourselves.
Yeah, we need to see, because since it is hilly region, when you are saying 5 kilometers for in the hill region, 5 kilometers is a big distance already.
No, these 5 kilometers,
we can.
This 5 kilometer concern will be there only when access to school is compulsory. Now, not going to school is an option. Then where is the right for us to claim that we must have a school? Because school availability of the school, going to the school became option available only for those who can afford it. If you don't have the affordability, the government has option for the multiple pathways. This is number one. Number two, under RTE Act, the provision in the RTE Act says this, that in absence of any school, the government will initiate a school within the specified area of 1 kilometer, 3 kilometer, 2 kilometer, whatever the specification. The RTE Act doesn't say that they will stop government's private school to start. What they say is that the government will withdraw their responsibilities to start a school in case there is a private school available within that area. Number one. Number two, within the RTE Act, the full-fledged government school as well as aided school can run in the same way, provided the grant to be given to that aided school will be on the basis of the number of children whom they give free and compulsory education. That means a private school can give free and compulsory education with a full grant coming from government. So this provision of the RTE Act is now overwritten by the NEP 2020. Under NEP 2020, RTE Act will definitely be amended. In fact, the NEP 2020 is already mentioned that necessary amendment will be done. So therefore, the provision given by the by the Right to Education Act, even for an inferior quality of education to be given to a school, full-fledged school, where teacher will be there, where room will be there, where there will be social interactions amongst teachers and the students will not be the valid proposition under NEP 2020. So the NEP 2020 is a license to exclude the people who cannot afford to pay. This is one. So therefore, the SWAM Academy have two choice. In fact, three choice. The first choice, SWAM Academy can get recognition, can have accreditation, and can lead a school complex. In fact, the SWAM Academy head can be the head of the whole school campus, provided
Yes.
they can qualify under the appraisal report and the CPD under central government. So therefore, the SWAM Academy can be the head of a school campus, school complex. This is one possibility, which the chances is very low.
And the accreditation will be with NIOS or SIOS?
No. Under this, NIOS will not come in. This is a different provision. Under school complex, in fact, within the school complex, the school complex students will be full-fledged regular students. They will not be under NIOS or online or homeschooling or something like that. So the SWAM Academy can be a lead private institution leading a campus. This is one possibility, which the chances is very low. Whereas the existing elite schools can do it very successfully. The second possibility is that the SWAM Academy children can be conveniently enrolled on online or NIOS or SIOS or vocational education, and the SWAM Academy technically, officially will not be in between these institution and the students. So SWAM Academy will be a kind of the unofficial private coaching centers. We know that our students will get admission to NIOS with three documents only. One document is age proof. The second document will be the proof of the Indian citizenship. The third document is proof of the address. With these three documents, our children who have crossed 14 years as of now can appear to class 10 very easily. This is what I also do it. We are helping it, a large number of the children to appear class 10 in NIOS. But technically, we don't have the right, nor our work is recorded officially. We simply help them. So if I help a rich people, I get money. If I help a poor people, I manage to raise the fund from some grant or something like that. But actually, SWAM Academy is outside the purview of the school structure. So this is one possibility. There is still a third possibility. The third possibility is this: the SWAM move out themselves from the Ministry of Education and affiliate to Ministry of Labor and become a skill development centers. Under these skill development centers, you will be entitled to write some kind of the certification. But the children pass out from their institutions, make skill development program, but they may not have option to go ahead for their education because the certificate given may be applicable to get some kind of the lower level job, but they will not be able to higher education. So therefore, the SWAM Academy has one option: completely privatize, make yourself a leader and run a school complex with accreditation certificate from the government of India. Let us not talk about government of Manipur. The state is simply a paper tiger. The second one, run a successful coaching center helping the poor, budget fees. The third one, come out of the education ministry and other ministry. And it is happening even in the higher education. NIFT is not under the Ministry of Education today. They are affiliated to Ministry of Textile. So likewise, your institution be treated as an institution under the umbrella of the education ministry, but it can be simply a threat. The unfortunate thing is that some academy children can never be in a position to encourage children officially to go for higher education. So there lies the...
Sir, but say
how will you be able to...
So if say some academy, if they are accredited to NIOS,
Yeah.
they can go to higher education.
Yeah.
If they go to higher education, like
No, NIOS, let us also not forget that NIOS accreditation to the institution is only for the recognized institution. That
mhm,
means you are necessarily to become a full campus. Now, since school is no more a unit,
mhm,
accredited schools for uh, providing exam centers and for the kind of the contact centers by the NIOS as of today will be replaced by this campus school complex. So therefore, for
then sir,
example, let's
yeah.
forget about the SOM Academy.
Mhm.
Hello.
Let me
Yeah.
list up again, sir. Like
So
then
therefore,
mhm,
yeah, please.
continue. You continue.
Yeah. So therefore, previously, let us say that there is a high school, there is a secondary school called Susanpur Secondary School. This
Mhm,
Susanpur Secondary School is given the accreditation by the NIOS to conduct exam as well as to become a study center for the NIOS students.
mhm.
Now, this right to affiliate, right to connect with NIOS will not be proceeding, will not be continued under the new schemes of the school complex. The affiliation will be done by the school complex. That means if you really want to run and connect with the NIOS as an accreditation center, then you have to become a full-fledged sub-unit of a school
A
complex.
complex.
Then only
But
you can run.
sir, recently, like on September 22nd,
Mhm.
on September 22nd, NIOS gave us accreditation to our school up
Mhm.
to class 8 standard.
Yes.
But and that also under after passing that NEP.
Uh-huh.
This what will be our status.
Uh,
They
um,
allowed us to they allowed us to be a study center of
I think
NIOS.
it will be allowed. Only thing is that over a period of time, accordingly,
Okay.
the single standalone institution has to be a part of the school complex,
Okay. Okay.
and hopefully there will be perhaps becoming a part of the school complex may not be a very may not be very complex. It may be very simple changes of the names in the letterhead. The
Okay.
most difficult tasks will be three provision. First provision is sharing of resources.
Mhm,
The second provision will be institutionalization of the best practices in the private schools into the government schools. The
mhm,
third provision is the sharing of the physical infrastructure. That
okay.
means the autonomy and flexibility and independent way of dealing with the curriculum now will
Mhm,
be intervened, will be disturbed by a third party intervention from the school complex.
okay.
So, what will happen later on, that God knows. But at least as an independent entity, will be compromised. So, when the government doesn't have financial provision, now next time when we want to get grant from somewhere, the resources built up by this grant will be available to the other institution also. Will it be acceptable by those grantee is a big question. Say for example, the CCI now created an asset of the school. It is this asset of the school is supported by some XYZ. Now this asset will be forced to make it available to the institutions in the school complex. Will CCI do it willingly or will CCI do it with a lot of pain in heart? Will this encourage the CCI to struggle to get more grant for more asset is a big question. Therefore, there will be a lot of the psychological alternative framework of motivating people now.
Mhm.
Am I clear?
Yeah, yeah, clear, clear, very
And
clear. Yeah.
yeah, to me, it is something like throwing stone on the wall. It becomes so obvious.
Mhm.
So, Jid,
Yes.
what about the education project that we keep doing. You
Um,
also run education project. I
yes,
also run education project.
yes. And the next line of our negotiation will be, of course, for, as I said, that the only option for us is for those who are running budget private school, targeting the poor parents, poor children. We maybe force ourselves to convert into private coaching center with budget fees. And for those of us who are doing intervention into the existing schools, the intervention will be now in the school complex level. And for those of us who has entrepreneurship skills, they may take advantage of the government's pro-private, pro-commercial approach, and we may even become educational entrepreneurs over a period of time. But the unfortunate thing is that whatever the direction we take it, whatever the action we take it, it seems that providing education, that too quality education for the marginalized section of the society will be increasingly very difficult. Now, let us look at these to three angles, not only NEP 2020. Let us look these to the recent amendment to the FCRA Act also. Now, if we really want to support our workers for our work, if we belong to the school campus, then our workers will be teachers. Since they are dealing in the field of education, then the 20% cap of administrative expenses may be negotiable. But for example, our schools is not recognized by the government. We simply became a private coaching centers. Then will be kept within that domain of the interested people who are running institution for raising fund of their own. I don't want to use the profit for the civil societies organization. In a situation like this, it will be exceedingly difficult to raise fund for the private parties, for the civil societies to do anything good for people. So it's something that really pain our heart. Let us not lose our hope at this point of time. But then
in the course of time, I think those who are having a FCRA, I think
yes,
it might be better to surrender to the government and do this same social work
there
where
is
we
a
can,
there is a
where we can
problem.
have where
Yeah.
we can have more than 20% of administrative expense.
No, there is
As
a
long as we don't have FCRA, I think we can spend more than 20% for administrative. I think
no.
if the fund is not,
Yeah,
yeah.
if the government is kind enough, when we surrender our FCRA, if they say yes, fine. But if they raise question why you surrender your FCRA, the asset created by the FCRA earlier will be seized by the government. And this is one very tricky situation with the FCRA amendment.
That's why it's the expert advice not to surrender.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now, even if you don't surrender your FCRA, automatically after 5 years it expires.
Yes,
So
yes.
they are advising people not to surrender. Rather than that, just wait for the
Five
expiration of
years.
Expiry. So
FCRA.
it is a kind of
Hejang might be in a trouble now because of COVID. Yeah, I know. Hejang has acquired many things under FCRA fund. You are in trouble.
Again, you
So,
are the one who acquired lots of
No,
things in the
no.
FCRA.
I,
Okay?
So
I don't acquire any assets under FCRA funds. Okay.
and let us also look at that there is already a plan well in place that the CSR fund will be given only to those organizations who are registered under particular sections of the Company Act. Now,
Yeah.
therefore, there is a tendency to force us to merge ourselves or to converse ourselves towards the structure of the corporate, where profit is the god and the outcome is the courtyard. And what is the input? You can do all sorts of the crime, but the input will not be the criteria to give an evaluation about how good you are. It will be on the basis of how much profit you earn, how much tax you pay, and how much outcome you bring out of your work. So it's a very difficult time. It's a difficult time. And we also have to look NEP 2020 from a different perspective. That is, we need to look to the Child Labor Act. We also need to look to the associated act changes in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And we also need to look to the income tax, how the GST rule is creating a lot of problem. Now, most likely our donation, we have to pay a part of it as a tax, but it is too early to say at this point of time. But what I feel is that India is leading towards a kind of the politics of exclusion instead of a politics of inclusion.
Hello, sir.
Yes, yes,
Hello.
yes.
Yeah, now we come to the FCRA, then we comes to the grandson. But one thing that I'm speaking, I'll come back, okay? Please don't mind. Once we are talking about this school complex and all, maybe because of school complex that will face that grants and all. So imagine now here in Maukandau block, as I talk, there are 175 schools, but who will survey, but who will establish that regarding that school complex?
Okay, okay.
Imagine now, like in Maukandau block, there is not imagine in Maukandau block there are 68 villages, 175 schools. Okay, but how many school complex will be established in this area? But who will did the survey? People or that school this school in this Maukandau block, or government will do the survey to form that school complex in this area?
Okay, three things I would like to highlight it. First, there is a new policy in the NEP 2020 called Symmetry of Private and Government Schools. The schools are divided in terms of who run the schools into two categories. One is schools run by the central government. These central government schools will not be subjected to the accreditation process as under SSSA. The second type of the school will be private and the government schools run by the states, within the state. That means the Presbyterian private school, the Catholic private school, the government full-fledged private school, the community schools will be treated at par. It is quite possible that the two schools in your village, one full-fledged government school and one private school run by the Presbyterian schools, after 3 years, the government school lost their accreditation because they cannot fulfill the criteria. But the Presbyterian schools still maintain the accreditation because they can fulfill the criteria. So therefore, accreditations will not be controlled by the state government, and the state government run school, state government supported school, as well as state government supported private school or state government supported, state government non-supported independent private school, what RTE call it self-financed private school, will be treated exactly in every aspect in the same category. So therefore, it is quite possible the government, central government authorities through SSSA at some point of time in the near future will declare that this much number of the government schools in Meghalaya now has been de-recognized because they cannot fulfill the accreditation criteria. So therefore, the private school will be recognized, the government school will be de-recognized, number one. Number two, the head of the school complex may not be necessarily by the government school teachers. It can be one teacher from the private schools.
But who will choose? But who will choose this head?
This is what I'm telling you, that once the school complex is created, the central government will use the state government machineries to implement it, but no direction, no decision will be taken in Department of School Education in the state level. So the officers and the machineries in the state level will be simply a cog in the wheel. It will be decided centrally in Delhi. Now the school education teachers, including from pre-primary level, from what we call foundational stage up to secondary level, the teacher will be controlled by a body called GEC, which is one of the four pillars, vertical pillar of the higher education. GEC means General Education Council. Under General Education Council, through SSSA, with the machineries like SCERT and CERT, a appraisal report will go for the teachers to the headquarters in Delhi, and this will be done online. There will be no place where you can sit, you can have sit-in protest for your disagreement. Once this is done, then a new system for teacher comes. This is called merit-based tenure system. Within the basis of the merit-based tenure system, with what they call CPD, minimum of the 50 days of the CPD. CPD is career progressive, career progression related things. Now, with this, the centrally coordinated decision-making bodies will make the decision of who will head the school complex. So we will not be able to control who will be the head. On the basis of the tenure system and the appraisal report, it will be done from Delhi. That means...
Surjit sir.
Yes.
Surjit sir.
Yeah.
What opportunity do these charity institutions have? And what challenges are we going to face?
All right.
With this NEP, and when this complex is coming into being?
Like
the challenges of charity institution and opportunity of challenges, opportunities of this charity institution.
I will give 3 examples from Northeast. I'm just highlighting this. One example from Okanro block of the Khasi Hills. Another example is from Imphal. The third example will be from Assam, Guwahati. I just want to start from Khasi Hills. If school complex started, the best candidate to lead the school complex in Mokonro block with Jongksa as a center will be the existing schools run by the Catholic called Good Shepherd schools, because they have the whole facilities and the all power to convince to the central government that they are the right candidate. So all the other institutions will be under their command. If this happen in Imphal, the schools surrounded, the schools in and around that area where the school like Unako is running, Unako can be a very good candidate to lead the school campus, the school complex. If it is in the Imphal city, Johnstone Higher Secondary School will be unqualified candidate, but the school in Thangal Bazar, I forgot the name, it's Catholic school, very, very prominent school. What is the name?
Nirmala Bas.
Nirmala Bas school will be the right candidate. Since the input is not the criteria.
But Nirmala Bas, they don't have any compound also.
This is where the provision for sharing resources is there. So immediately the Nirmala Bas school will be accessible to the school hall and the school campus available in Johnson Higher Secondary Schools and around Lanpan schools. So since their performance is much better than the others in terms of the board exam, and the expected NTA test for outcome will be definitely one step ahead of others by them, Nirmala Bas will be a very, very suitable candidate to lead the school complex. Advantage for Nirmala Bas will be now once the school complex will be having it as soon as school complex started, the school hall to be sent, this Johnson Higher Secondary School, the laboratory of the Johnson Higher Secondary Schools, the what to say, that ground, handball ground or basketball ground available will be accessible by Nirmalabas institution. Now, the government school also can get access to the Nirmalabas schools. But what is there to get access by others in Nirmalabas schools? They are rich in terms of money, but very poor in terms of infrastructure. So therefore, the best benefit will go to the Nirmalabas schools. The worst thing will come when the already psychologically distorted children of the other schools are forced to sit together, to work together, to compete together with the already advanced so-called private schools. So it will further
top schools.
demoralize the this thing. Now, very interesting. To the paper, the Jonathan Higher schools have say 20 teachers, but when it comes to the officially accepted number of teachers in Nirmalabas, they can easily be manipulated and they can say that we have only 5 teachers. Now these 5 teachers provision will be accepted because the RTE Act provisions of the infrastructure, the number of teachers, the number of rooms, the number of all these input will be relaxed under NPE 2020. Therefore, a private school can come out very proudly that our school is a good school with no teachers. But the government school cannot claim this. Therefore, the government school teacher will be forced to teach to the private school. The private school teachers will not be in a position to force it because they are no more officially the teachers of the school. Now, very important things here comes. There are around 10 type of the teachers in NEP 2020. But I would like to highlight only 5 type of the teachers now. The first is full-fledged governments, full-fledged regular teachers. These teachers need qualification like B.Ed, and they need to qualify TET or NTA test. The other teachers can be peer group teachers. Student can be a teacher if the student performance is good. This is called peer group teachers. The third one is called expert teachers. They can pick up teachers from the society and they will be given 3 months online education under diet and they will become teachers. The third type of the fourth type of the teachers will be the volunteers to be selected by the central government to teach. This is very important now, to teach one subject called STA, Standard Simple Sanskrit, Learning Sanskrit through Sanskrit. This provision is from foundational stage up to the 12th class. So therefore, one teacher for a school is now compulsorily to be provided by the center with a financial provision. This is still can be optional, but who would like to lose the money? So at least one of our colleagues will be getting the salary from government. So people will go for it. So therefore, within this structure, the government school teachers will be heavily demoralized. And another very important thing is strictly, it is mentioned very clearly, strictly, that there will be no promotion in seniority basis. It will be only on merit base. That means the senior teachers of the government school can be handled inhumanly by a young, active, intelligent private schools head of the school complex. So,
but it's also, it might have an advantage. Yeah. Because some teachers, they just sit there because they are very senior and they don't know the update of the day-to-day also. And in the meantime, they are proud of their seniority and they just sit and idle.
But yeah, there is a problem. Because the credibility of the school will not be on the credibility complex. Very important for us to know this one. A private school and a government schools, they are administered together by the head of a private school, whose interests will be serving by this head. He or she will definitely have vested interest to serve the interests of the private schools than the government schools. Now, accreditation will not be in the name of the school complex. It will be in the name of the subunit of the school complex called school. But the administration will be done by the head of the school complex. Therefore, allowing a private bodies to enter into the government structure and allowing the government employed teachers to teach the private children, private school children, to be controlled by the private school's head is something I feel personally quite inhuman. But one more thing, two things we need to remember this one. Under these circumstances, the presently prevailing power of the Department of School Education in the state level, in terms of appointing the teachers, giving the training, provisioning finances, provisioning physical infrastructure, has been completely removed in the NEP 2020. The Department of School Education at state level has only two possible provisions for provisioning finance, infrastructure, and manpower. What are those things? Two. One is called short term, other one is called long term. The short term means up to 1 year. The long term means from 3 to 5 years. With this curtailing the power of the state education department, the teacher's salary of the state education department may not be possible to have incentive as that of today in terms of allowance and all these things. But very important things, let us not forget. In NEP 2020, the whole concept of employment is hire and fire. It is all the time the whole notion of merit-based hiring. It is not about employing as a full-fledged teachers. So therefore, even if we look into the chapter 3, from the chapter 3, number 1 up to chapter 3, section 3, it gives the impression to us that they are going to appoint adequate number of teachers, but the remaining sections of the chapters keep repeatedly enlightening us that the government is not going to appoint full-fledged school teachers. Now, these notions of myself is supported by the NEP 2020's two important provisions. The first important provision, there will be no standalone education, teachers of education training centers. Number one. Number two, the admission to the teachers of admission to the B.Ed college will be based on the projections created by the centrally coordinated body. That means the admission to the B.Ed colleges will be limited to the availability of the children. It will not be based on the necessity, and it will not be based on the constitutional mandate of social justice. It will be based on the chances of being employed as a full-fledged teachers. So the situation is quite grim.
If the standalone, like the standalone teachers training center is standalone, it will become a standalone. Then, as I mentioned in my presentation, that NCT and RCI, can they come together or will they come together?
I think that is not very clear, but most likely the RCI will be merged together with the NCT. That chances is very
It should be, yeah. They have to emerge.
But the unfortunate thing is that the provision for the alternative or a kind of the enhanced curriculum for B.Ed colleges, I mean B.Ed courses, is very dim. Like 4 years degree course for teachers education is not a new thing. It has been doing it by the Regional Institute of Education for several years. First it was started in Mysore, now it is going on in Delhi under NCERT. Here, admission is very tough. One have to pass 12th class. After that, have to have an all India level entrance examination. Then for the 4 years, they will be learning it about every element of teaching learning process. Even in this 4 years degree course as of today, the quality of the teachers after they pass out for this course for dealing for special education is extremely poor, because they put only an optional factor. In fact, a B.Ed pass teachers can come out from the institution with brilliant performance without even reading a single page of the disability, because disability is an option. It is not a compulsory part of the B.Ed course.
They have to include disability as one of the paper in the B.Ed.
Yeah, this
Then
is
after that, they have to go for specialization. If
yeah,
someone is not opting for disability, then they can go for maths or whatever this other
yeah.
specialized subject. But if the council can include as one paper or at least say 50% of the mark of a paper, then at least the basic knowledge of disability will become
Yes.
under that be it.
And even in the worst thing under the RCI also, a student learning about sign language will not be touching braille. It will not be touching the other area of it. So in a way, it is something of the developing the skills of a particular niche only. It is not about reorienting the mind of the person in such a way that he or she now started realizing that disability is not disability, but it is an identity. So that kind of a perspective is miles to go right now. Now coming to the
Yeah.
NEP 2020, it may be too much for us to anticipate too many things, but at least broadly, four parameters of exclusion, uh, the hope for disability education may not be so obvious unless we really fight for it.
Yeah.
I missed the one line. I was thinking of start. Um, I was thinking of sharing about this policy regarding disability. Yeah, that is one. Yeah, I missed the. Yeah. For teachers, the teachers appointment and all. I think I shared that one. Okay, I was having something in my mind to share it, but somehow it just lost now. So any questions, anything to discuss? Yeah, Jlina was asking about who will be the head of the school complex. I think I said that it opportunity for the private player to subjugate to the government schools, and this is going to be very unfortunate. Down to completely wipe out school education supported by the that serves the purpose for the poor and the marginalized section of the society is now taking it.
Surjit,
Yeah. Yes.
the the whole concept of school complex where I mean a private player who are much better in terms
Mhm.
of infrastructure and then in terms of the teachers capacity taking over everything,
Mhm.
uh, won't it be like I mean killing the whole quality of education? Because that particular uh, school lead who is heading the school complex,
Mhm.
there's always a chance of
Mhm.
uh, I mean having a vested interest, because when it comes to education, it is one of the most thriving business,
Yes.
where in business you
Mhm.
don't want other to overtake you. In that perspective,
Mhm. Correct.
I am sensing uh, it's very danger, because that within that school complex, the particular school who become the lead can
Mhm.
lead in his vested interest. What is your opinion?
The USP of its
I think
that
I
the very
fully
school.
endorse.
Let me, the USP, the unique
Yes.
selling point of that very beautiful and very success and like
Yes.
the elite school has to compromise
Uh,
when it come under
the there
the
there can be
complex.
yes, yeah,
He
there
has
can
to
be
sacrifice
three possible consequences. Hello, hello, Pauzagin, you already this thing. Please unmute. Cannot hear you.
let me come back. Let me
Hello.
come back. Hejang
Yeah,
said,
sure.
say, let's take example of Nirmalabas. That is the best school in the elite school in Manipur. Then when Nirmalabas
Yes.
came under a complex, that Nirmalabas
Mhm.
has to compromise its unique selling point, USP,
Mm.
to that Johnson and other neighboring schools
Mhm.
which are within the complex. So that
Mhm.
means education
Mhm.
cannot be no longer a profit making or a business institution again after this NEP is coming into force. That is my idea.
I could not get it. In fact, NEP 2020 um, uh, use a term triple P, public spirited private P. So these are quite a confusing and a misleading notion. I'd like to explain more, but I want to come back to you. I couldn't get the last point you made it about. You were saying something. I missed the line. Am I audible now? Yeah,
Yeah, I can hear
I
now.
couldn't get exactly what you were asking.
No, no,
Yeah,
I'm
please repeat the question.
I'm just adding Hezang's point. Say
Yeah.
Nimalabas is one of the elite school,
Yes.
and if when NEP come into force, and
Yes.
say Nimalabas also within one complex, say Johnston School and other neighboring schools, then the
Mhm.
Nirmalabas they have their own USP, but
Yes. Correct.
they will not be able to maintain their USP as they are with other neighboring schools,
Mhm.
and they have to compromise their USP. That means, as in terms of business term,
Yes.
they are compromising their USP, and
Uh-huh.
they can no longer make money from the school. It looks like that
Provided,
for to
yeah,
me.
provided they compromise.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
provided they
Yeah.
should they have to compromise.
No, but they will not. Okay. Very important thing. Let us not forget one important thing here. There is a provision in the NEP 2020. I repeat once again. There is a provision in the NEP 2020 that a private school as well as government school. Of course, it is not mentioned government school, but it has been mentioned very clearly that the institutionalization of the private practices in the government school will be initiated under school complex. So that means the best practices of the private school can be practiced in government schools also. Now, one of the provision by the NEP 2020 is that the school must collect fees, not for profit, but to to support the school. Now, a private school says that we will give 1.5 lakhs a month to a teacher. This money can be easily collected. So therefore, there is no upper ceiling for how much fees. Only condition met by the NEP 2020 is this, that you have to disclose this, how much you collect it in triple SA website. That's all. So it is something like spell out and collect whatever the fees you want to collect it. If I want to use a word, perhaps an unparliamentary language, is that disclose and the loot. The second one is there is a provision called collection of the surplus fees. The surplus fees is for this. The surplus fees can be the fees to be invested in future for educational purpose. So therefore, a XYZ private school has a policy of expansion in the form of higher education later on after 10 years. They can collect now whatever the fees they fix it from the school children or from wherever they want to collect it. This will be legally valid collection fees to be used in the future. That means there is no limit for the for the private institutions that how much fees they can collect it now in the name of the future utilization of the fees for the educational purpose. Second, in NEP 2020, private institutions, both in school level and higher educations, their asset can be used by the community, or the corollary of it is that the private institutions can take initiative for community utilization any part of their asset. That means the community utilization doesn't mean that it is available free of cost. Therefore, an institution, a private institution, can even build up a beautiful and a very high-tech modern stadium, and this stadium can be used for raising fund for future use once again. So therefore, it is completely open for the private parties to raise fund in whatever possible manner, provided they can guarantee it, they can declare right now that the money we collect today is to be utilized for future educational investment as well as future educational investment for public utility. This public utility and the future investment can be definitely be misappropriated. Imagine that a school collect 200 crore of rupees over a period of 5 years to be utilized after 20 years. In between this capital will be available in their head, in their hand, in whatever manner they can use it. So provisioning by way of legitimizing private fees collection not to be utilized immediately for educational purpose, but with a promise to be used in a future debt for educational purposes. That asset is available as a ready-to-use asset for any purpose of their wish. So this is something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Collection
this is,
for future use looks like different. No? Oh, say when the power change, the power of the government may be changed, and the
no.
policy might change.
You're right. You're right. The policy might change it, but these any policy implicating to the financial asset, it cannot be changed so easily because it is tying up with in several fields. So once it is changed, then reversing to the previous one will be extremely difficult. It is something like killing a person and trying to do a magic to revive the person, which is likely not to be possible. But let's hope for the best that NEP 2020 change in itself because of the pressure or whatever reason, and the best sense prevails and something happen. But unless this miracle comes into the pictures, that means the private parties can collect money of whatever amount they want to use it. Like for example, UNACO, tomorrow they can ask to all the parents that we want to expand our institutions in 2035. So therefore, please pay extra fees for this. And the parents cannot refuse this one. They cannot go to the court because the NEP 2020 permitted to collect surplus fees for future use. And this is completely new. It is not in any other form, even in the form of the common sense earlier. Now, another thing is about the outcome based, but input to be ignored is a dangerous thing. That means if anybody can run institutions, even in a private rented room, just like we have been seeing it, and if they can perform well in the NTA, National Testing Agency's test, then they will be given accreditation. So therefore, as Hejang said, there will be so many parties in the educational field that their vested interest is to earn money, not at all their interest to provide quality education. And for the nation as well as for we individual, it is a loss-loss situation, and something that we find it very difficult to comprehend why the government of India put such a drastically damaging policy for the education of the children of India. Something I'm really confused. I cannot comprehend it. The more I think about it, the more I got confused myself. Hello, MK. I think time is running out. I know.
Yes, I always wanted
Hello.
to listen to Surjit's discourse. I'm very happy listening to what Surjit is talking about.
Thank you.
Let me hope for another day also.
Thank you, Surjit. Thank you, all the participants, as well as the speaker, and sparing your time, precious time, in deliberating the NEP policy, as well as we touch upon the FCRA, which I think in future NFI will also help, will also organize some kind of discussion around FCRA. So thank you so much. I think it's time for us to break out and see you next time. Thank you, Jlina. Thank you, Hejang. Thank you, Pauzagin. And thank you, Surjit, for
Thank you.
sparing your
Thank you,
precious